President Joe Biden has decided to resort to executive action on the issue of gun control. Now, this is of course in response to the mass shootings that have happened recently, and he gave a press conference listing exactly what he intends to do. Let's watch.
First, want to rein in the proliferation of so-called ghost guns. These are guns that are homemade, built from a kit, that include directions on how to finish the firearm. You can go buy the kit. They have no serial numbers, so when they show up at a crime scene, they can't be traced. And the buyers aren't required to pass a background check to buy the kit, to make the gun. Consequently, anyone from a criminal to a terrorist can buy this kit in as little as 30 minutes, put together a weapon. You know, I want to see these kits treated as firearms under the Gun Control Act, which is going to require that the seller and manufacturers make the key parts with serial numbers and run background checks on the buyers when they walk in to buy that package.
I mean, that honestly just sounds like common sense. It doesn't sound like anything controversial. He did not propose or implement an assault weapons ban, for instance, something that he did campaign on, but is not planning on doing through executive action. He's just trying to expand what the pretty flimsy gun regulations we have applies to. And in this case, if you're talking about a kit that's meant to literally like put a gun together, make a gun, then yeah, it should be regulated as guns are regulated, and it should absolutely have a serial number. This isn't rocket science. I think this is pretty much a no-brainer. Cenk.
Yeah, so let's acknowledge that the NRA is in favor of criminals, because even on something as benign as this, they say no, criminals should be allowed to put together guns that have no serial numbers, so we have no chance of catching them after they commit crimes. You know why? Because criminals buy a lot of weapons, and the people who fund the NRA are weapons manufacturers, and they make money from selling weapons. Oh, right, and weapon parts. So is this a bold proposal? I know people are excited. Everybody every day is comparing Biden to Bernie or FDR or something. No, this is as tame a proposal as you could possibly imagine. Ghost gun is, close to a ghost issue. It's tiny. It's not asking for much at all. We're not doing assault weapons ban, and we're not talking about an effective federal background check. He's punted anything. Those weren't even major. Those were actually relatively normal, a short while back, a decade ago, 2 decades ago for sure, right? And now it's like, whoa, we can't even get something. Federal background checks, I've said this a million times, 97% of Americans agree to them. And he won't even propose the thing that 97% of Americans agree with. So if I know a lot of people are going nuts celebrating these announcements, I think they amount to a giant whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, I think your read of it is correct, right? Because these are not major changes in the ability to purchase, let's say, there's nothing about high capacity magazines. There's nothing about assault weapons. I mean, this is just, hey, we've got weak gun laws, but let's expand those weak gun laws to some new innovations in guns, right? And in this case, we're talking about these so-called ghost guns. But he also had one other specific thing that he wanted to regulate, and he's about to talk about that in the next clip.
We want to treat pistols modified with stabilizing braces with the seriousness they deserve. A stabilizing brace shook in a pencil essentially makes that pistol a hell of a lot more accurate than a mini rifle. As a result, it's more lethal, effectively turning it into a short-barreled rifle. That's what the alleged shooter in Boulder appears to have done. I want to be clear that these modifications to firearms that make them more lethal should be subject to the National Firearms Act. The National Firearms Act requires that a potential owner pay $200 fee and submit their name and other identifying information to the Justice Department, just as they would if they went out and purchased a silencer for a gun.
So you just heard the two most, I would argue, robust executive parts of the executive order, right? So again, there's nothing about banning certain guns. There's nothing about even banning certain devices that could enhance the gun to be far more lethal. But what he's doing here is just trying to include the necessary background checks, the necessary gun regulations to these devices, to these innovations in gun making or gun purchasing. And so again, this is not that difficult. I don't think this is a big deal. This certainly doesn't take guns away from anyone. So as we enter probably the next day of conservative talking points about how guns are being taken away from law-abiding citizens, just understand that these executive orders do no such thing. And just one other thing I wanted to add, the issue with executive orders, as much as we want Biden to use his executive power to pass regulations or policies that we desperately need in the short term, understand that it's not much of a long-term solution because they can easily be reversed by the next administration, especially if it's a Republican administration. So there are some downfalls to executive orders as well. But Cenk, what did you want to add?
Yeah, no, look, when I saw the headlines on Biden proposes bold gun legislation, I was really looking forward to it, or executive orders in this case. And then I read it, and then I reread it. I was like, did I miss it? I mean, if you'd asked me before these came out, give me your list of top 10 things on gun control, I would not have come up with adjusted pistols and ghost guns. I don't know that they would have made the top 20. So now if you're wondering, wait, why is there a disparity between what I'm hearing on the Young Turks and what I'm hearing elsewhere? Let me explain why. First of all, a lot of gun safety groups, they have to be political. It's not their fault. So when Biden gives them an inch, they have to pretend that it was a mile and be thrilled and exuberant because they never even get an inch. Not only in Republicans, but oftentimes with Democrats. So, and they have to try to encourage the Biden administration. So you will see positive quotes from a lot of those groups today. And then, the rest of the media is divided up into just partisan camps. I don't mean progressive and conservative. That I think is totally fine. They're broken up into Republican and Democrat. So MSNBC is just a Democratic-run media organization, and so if you turn them on, you'll hear like, "Oh my God, Joe Biden is the FDR and LBJ combined of gun control." The adjusted pistols, everybody knows that was the main issue. No, that just happened in one shooting, and it's terrible, and I'll take it, right? That the executive order that he's doing, but no, that was not a major issue. Pretending that it was is akin to a lie. So look, the things that he promised on the campaign trail was assault weapons ban, voluntary gun buyback program, send a bill to Congress to repeal liability protections from gun manufacturers. That's super important, and close the background check loophole. And he said he would
super important. Yeah, like 100%. That is such a no-brainer. That's such a no-brainer. I don't know why he didn't do that.
No, because
get rid of the loopholes.
No, look, so the job of the political people is to kiss each other's ass and to try to nudge people in the right direction. The job of the news is supposed to be to tell you the truth, okay? These proposals are incredibly weak. So, you'll find every host on MSNBC and CNN beside themselves, but it's just not backed up by any of the facts. I'll do one last thing. All the stronger ones that he said he would do on the campaign trail, he said they were so important he was gonna do them on the first day. Now, all of a sudden, it ain't the first day, and they use COVID as an excuse for everything, right? Oh, because of COVID, we melted, our brains melted down. We can't do anything else. Yeah, no, I don't believe you. That's just not true. You could easily do more executive orders, and yes, you could push for a bill right now, and you're not going to do any of that because you're worried. You're worried about, in this case, old conventional wisdom that the country loves guns. What part of 97% do you not understand? And the reality is, Democrats these days are just weak.
There's one other thing that I wanted to point to, which I think is a positive change, again, done by this executive action. There had been a lot of issues with incredibly weak red flag laws, where if an individual was found to be mentally unstable, violent, domestically violent, it would be incredibly difficult to get rid of their guns or take guns away from them temporarily until that situation was worked out. What he wants to do is provide Actually, I take it back because it's not like he's single-handedly doing something about these weak red flag laws. He's just saying we're gonna provide resources for what we think the red flag law should be. The president will also direct the Justice Department to publish model red flag legislation for states that want to enact such laws that enable family members or members of law enforcement to petition for court order to temporarily bar people in crisis from accessing firearms if they present a danger to themselves or others. So just to be clear, focus on that issue is important, and I'm not taking away from that. But in terms of what this executive action really does, effectively nothing. It's just publishing what the desired model would be and hoping that states would then replicate that model in their own home state. That's unlikely to happen in these red states, of course. So that's what the reality is, just keeping it real.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.